Okay, I'd like to call to order the Cuyahoga County Council Worksession for Wednesday, March 27th, 2013. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Calling the roll, Mr. Rogers, Ms. Simon, Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Brady.
Here.
Mr. Germana.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Ms. Conley.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
All right, I anticipate that Mr. Rogers and Ms. Simon will be here shortly. We have two presentations today dealing with first our Global Center for Health Innovations project and also the County Administration Complex. So I'd like to call on Mr. Applebaum. Are you ready to go?
I am, thank you. Good afternoon. I have a brief presentation and update on the Cleveland Convention Center and Global Center for Health Innovation.
Well said.
I have made a commitment to others on the project, but every time or any time I say Medical Mart, I pay $1 into a fund.
But bang the gavel every time you say medical.
Right,
marijuana.
so if I'm caught, I have my money clip with me.
Note that Ms. Simon is now present.
So we are rounding third and headed home on this project. Every time I present, I always go back to this slide that you may see here. Yes, the project summary. And the only thing about this slide that has changed from day one has been the substantial completion date in blue. For a long period of time when I presented this, up until several months ago, the substantial completion date was August 31, 2013. From the outset of the project, that was the substantial completion date for at least the convention center part of the project and tenant move-in into the global center. You may recall, I think probably the last time I presented, because it's been a few months, we changed that date and moved that up to July 15, 2013. We were excited to move it up by 6 weeks, and we were also excited at that point in time to announce that that would accommodate the senior games, and we're now well down the path planning for the senior games, 35,000 people in town for that event. Well, I have another exciting announcement about schedule today because we are proceeding in such a good fashion that we are going to move that date up again. And we are just entering into an agreement with MMPI to further revise that date to now move the substantial completion date up to June 1st, 2013. So we think that we will be completed, substantially completed, with the convention center portion of the project. And frankly, the entire project, other than tenant move-in into the upper floors of the Global Center. The contractual date is June 1, 2013. Turner, our design builder, is actually shooting for obtaining a certificate of occupancy sometime in mid-May. That tells you the pace and just the professionalism with which this project is being completed. With respect to the Global Center, right now, there's a reason, by the way, I've been asked for some tours. We've been given a lot of tours. We can't give a tour this week because the Global Center is now closed off even to tours because Turner is in the process of doing their final work in that building to obtain a temporary certificate of occupancy by April 1. The thought is they can get the temporary C of O. Now, obviously, we still have the tenants that have to move in to all of their space up above. But one purpose for the temporary C of O is that MMPI will, after April 1, actually start to occupy offices there. So they can actually move into the building, take office space there, and start to operate from inside the building. So this is exciting because this tells us that the project is proceeding apace. We are ahead of schedule and now can announce these dates. The fact that we now can open the building June 1 means that we do not have to wait till July in order to have our grand opening event. I mean, we'll still have the senior games in July, but we do plan now on having a ribbon cutting and an event in June More about that later. We're now just starting to work through the details of how that will occur now that we know that we've secured the date. But the next time I talk to you or before that, we'll announce a grand opening event in the month of June for the facility. Something that when we started out, we didn't think we would accomplish, but the schedule permits us to do that. Everything else on this chart remains the same way that it always has. The same budget, the same building, the same size. So we'll go on to a construction update. Where are we in terms of construction? Well, the most important thing I'd like to say here is the project continues to be delivered within and even under budget. As you may recall, the overall development budget is $465 million, and that includes everything. That includes the county's costs, our real estate costs, buying the property in the first place, county consultants, all of MMPI, Turner, the design build. But the developer's cap, everything that the developer, MMPI, gets to spend within the 465 is capped at $418.3 million. They have cost overrun responsibility above that, and I can tell you that as of the end of, projected through the end of March, their costs are now about $392.9 million. So they have about $26 million of left. And by the way, that includes retention and contingency. Within their budget right now, they still show $6.3 million of contingency. Now, that contingency, we have lined up several items. That contingency will be expended on various items within the project. As the project contingency allows, there's a list of things that we always said with MMPI. They've always said if they can buy them, they will. And we're now working through that final ad alternate list as to what will come into the project at the very end. But their work is 94% complete as of right now. Within their budget is Turner's guaranteed maximum price for all the base building work that Turner does. Their guaranteed maximum price for the project is $356.5 million. They take cost overruns above that number. They have the value of work that they have completed to date and for which they can apply for payment. And this is, by the way, projected through the end of March, so there's a few days here of projection, is $347.4 million. They are 97% complete with construction, and you'll see that in a few minutes as I show you the pictures. Now, keep in mind, there's certain things that Turner is not responsible for, such as furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That comes out of MMPI, but the base building construction is now 97% complete. The county's contingency remains. We still have within the 465 something over $2.7 million. Our contingency started out at 3.5 or 3.4. There have been two uses of the contingency, or two calls on that contingency. We haven't spent them yet. You may recall very early on in the project, we contributed some money with respect to the Group Plan Commission study and design. We did that a third with the city and MMPI. And then $500,000 of the contingency is being used to support the senior games. Those are the only two things that we have ever spent out of contingency. So essentially, our contingency for construction purposes remains entirely intact. There's some things that we will discuss later on about uses for that contingency. We still want to make sure that the project is fully delivered. We may be 97% done, but we're not 100% done yet. So we're just making sure there's no tail end risks. But we think we will have money available to spend on certain things that we'll discuss at a later time. But from a financial point of view, the project is in great shape. We are ahead of schedule. We are under budget right now. Also, we continue to exceed the requirement to obtain LEED certification for this convention center, which is also a great accomplishment. Our spectacular center, green roof, LEED certification. Here's some pictures.
I'm sorry, Madam President. Can I ask a question real quick on the contingency?
What?
One, the $500,000 to the Sports Commission, where did that come out of? The 2.7?
It came out of that contingency.
Okay.
So the $3.4 million contingency we had for the project is where that $500,000 came out of. So here are some construction progress photos. I'm just going to run you through these very quickly. And these are as of March 25th. So here you are seeing, and by the way, you know, it's still a construction site, so there's still debris and things around. But this is the junior ballroom at the bottom of the Global Center. And here you can see that ceilings are in, lighting's in. That's the movable partition that you're seeing. That partition, you know, divides the room in half. You can see carpet is in. This is the view from the other side. You can see the west opening that faces the building we're in right now. But this just gives you just an idea of the level of completion where we're at on that. This is up on the second level of the Global Center, which I believe would be a capital C at the bottom there. I say put a small c for center. But now what you're seeing is, you know, this is going to be part of this tenant space. So this is a corridor, and you see the glass enclosure on either side where these various tenants will be behind the glass enclosure. So you see the level of finish, you see the ceiling, you know, very far along and getting ready for the tenants to come in and start building out. Now we are down in the exhibit hall. We are now looking from west to east. That's the expanse of Exhibit Hall B. The ceiling's in, the lighting's in, the polished concrete floor is in. If you have good eyes, you can actually see what in the middle of the picture is the opening, one of the openings up to the public auditorium. To the left would be, you see a little bit of light there, that's where the expanse starts to go up to the lakeside entrance. This is another view of the exhibit halls. This is Exhibit Hall C. And once again, you're looking to the north, so you can see that little, there's light there coming from the lakeside entrance. Once again, you can see the lighting is partially in, not completely in here. It's much more impressive when you go down there and you're on the floor. These pictures are construction photos. They're not, you know, they're not done as, you know, publicity shots, but this gives you a great idea of just the level of progress. It's really spectacular when you go down there and look at it. This is an example within the exhibit halls. There are concession stands built into the sides. This is just an exhibit. This shows the level where we're at on one of the concession stands with the framing of the stand, some of the equipment there, flooring there. On this picture, we're now down in the pre-function area. We are looking south to north, so the window wall that faces the lake is behind me, and we're looking south so that you have meeting rooms, the large meeting rooms on the left. You have the grand ballroom on the right. You can see once again, ceiling in, carpet in, working on the finishes on the walls and on the columns, etc. Now, and I hate this picture because it really doesn't do it justice. The grand ballroom is really phenomenal to be inside, but you can see here the grand ballroom. You can see something about the ceiling, which is really spectacular to look at. You see the carpet. And once again, to your right will be the kitchen area. To your left is the exit into the pre-function area. But once again, carpet in, ceilings in, finishes very, very well along. Looking inside, the kitchen is vast, and there's several rooms and areas of the kitchen, about $1.5 million of equipment just in the kitchen. I'm just talking about food service equipment. Here you see some of that food service equipment. It's either partially or fully installed. It's all there. It hasn't all been placed, but you can see this is one of the rooms in the kitchen. Here's another room in the kitchen, so you can just see that the equipment has been delivered and it's the process of being installed in these large kitchen areas. So that gives you an idea just of what's going on in the building, level of finish. Once again, you know, if you want any final visits, you know, before we're ready for business, talk to me about it, because what's great about looking at it right now is you can still see the back of the house. And I think the back of the house tour is actually more interesting and exciting than the tour. You know, just to follow from where something is delivered to how it gets into the kitchen to how it will be delivered to a meeting room, just taking that route through the building is actually very interesting. It's what excites the meeting planners. They all just love the building. I think it's just very well done for events. In terms of contracting and staffing, I had person power loading, but you know the term in the industry is manpower loading, so I went back to manpower loading. I don't think we're ready for person power loading yet. But what the curve on the bottom shows is, you know that in earlier sessions from the beginning, I've been showing you how we ramped up in manpower to a peak. Well, now we're obviously ramping way down. You can see the line on the bottom is where we are on the ramp. We reached a high point in September of 2012 when we had an average of 661 people on the project every workday, which is in the industry referred to as 661 man months. This past month, we were down to 480, so we're starting to ramp down. And in March, we project that we'll probably be in this 268 to 300 range. So the manpower is ramping down. Now, this is the manpower for base building work through Turner. Keep in mind that as that ramps down, tenant build out will occur. So there'll be other manpower not part of this that comes into the tenant space and starts building out that tenant space. That's not reflected on this chart. This is just the base manpower that we, have the responsibility to monitor and manage and look at the pay applications for. So that's where we are in terms of manpower on the project. Economic inclusion. We have 3 critical goals on the project. Our SBE goal, small business enterprise contract goal of 25%. It actually inched up a little bit. This is the cumulative for the project. We're now at just about 32%. Our county residency, our goal was 40%. We inched up a little bit on this one too. The last time I was with you, I think I showed 52%. We're now at 54% cumulative on the project for county residency. The city residency stays at around 20%. Going back to the SBE, let me point out, this is a real success of this project. This has not been done this well on other public projects that I know of. There have been 169 subcontracts for SBEs under 37 different prime contractors or prime packages. 169 committed subcontracts. 58 of those hired by their respective prime contractors for the first time. And that, as you remember, was a real goal of our project. We think that's really helped us a great deal. The other thing I'm going to tell you, now that we're done, or pretty close to done, we have seen or uncovered no instances of delays or irregularities in getting payments all the way down to the subcontractor level. So, sometimes on these projects, you hear about issues about payment being delivered, timely payment. Hasn't been a problem here. As a matter of fact, I want to talk about payment on this project. When we get involved in other public projects, the public sector competes with the private sector. We want to get the best contractors to come bid projects like this. We want them to work on the project. We want them to give the best pricing. One of the impediments on public projects is the timeliness of payment. There are a lot of public bodies that go through an excruciating process of getting payments, processing payments, and it can take a long time for payment actually to go from pay application to getting contractors paid. I'm not going to mention any other public body in the state of Ohio that has a problem with this, but those public bodies know who they are. And we've seen a lot of issues where the payment period can be 30 days or worse. It can get out to 60 and 90 days. A typical public project pay scale at best is 30 days, which is to say from the time we get the pay application in to the time we get the payment out to the contractor and he gets it to its subs, 30 days. If you can shorten that pay cycle, you can do a dramatic job of making the project much better and much more attractive for those people who work on the project. And by the way, there's no advantage to us to really hold on to the money. The way it works for us, the interest rates are extraordinarily low. We're not making any money on holding on to money. The key is we have to have a very effective and prompt processing solution. So versus the 30 days plus, which is normal in public contracting, we have achieved 12 days, which is to say from the time the pay application comes in, we get it at PMC, we review the whole thing, and we scrub it, and Bonnie will tell you we do an excellent job of scrubbing these things, because if there's something we don't like, we just hold it. We don't argue it. We don't pay it. We put it aside, pay what we can agree to, and work those out as this process is going on. But our process is to actually get through that process, and the county has actually been making payment to MMPI within 11 days. And then at that point in time, it's pro forma. It's a one-day turnaround from MMPI to Turner. We don't permit any holding of the money. So the whole process is 12 days. And I can tell you, if you talk to people on the project, payment is very, very prompt, which means they're excited to work on the project. They feel it's a fair public process, and getting payment out in 12 days versus 30 days or more is a real success factor on the job. A reason we think that SBEs and all subcontractors and contractors in the project are very pleased with the way this project works. This is hard to read, but I'm going to tell you the bottom line. This is our workforce inclusion for the whole project, and this shows it to you contractor by contractor, but let me give you the bottom line on this. We are now at about I would say that we're now probably around 1.5 million work hours on the project. This, as of the end of this past month, it was at 1,449,000 workforce hours. Of those hours, 21% have been worked by minorities. That's about, I think, 302,000 man-hours. 84,000, actually almost 85,000 man-hours by female workers, 6% female workforce. City of Cleveland, as I mentioned before, 20%, and Cuyahoga County, 54%. So that's saying that of about 1.4 million man-hours, 787,000 man-hours by residents of Cuyahoga County, and that's a pretty good accomplishment. In fact, it's a great accomplishment for a project like this. I think everyone who's been involved with the project is very proud of getting that kind of number. And here's the other great thing about it. With over 1.4 million hours worked, there have been no major accidents. I always do this, no major accidents on this project. Very little lost time, an extraordinarily safe job, great tribute to Turner and their safety program, but it's been just a tremendous job in terms of safety. So it's been a good project for Cuyahoga County and the city, and it's been a very safe project, very well run, very well managed project. So right now, while we are working furiously to complete construction, we've also been working very, very hard on the operations planning phase. I'm not going to get into great detail, but simply to tell you that we are now involved in regular operations planning meetings. There's constant communication between the county and MMPI. In this, I'm Dave O'Neill, who you've met from Conventional Wisdom, is also my partner in this. We spend a lot of time on all the operational issues. We have bi-weekly, very, very exhaustive planning meetings. We're implementing the staff plan. The RFPs and selection of vendors is going on for the operation phase. And by the way, all the RFPs which are being issued for the project are linked to the county website. So if there's a bidder out there who doesn't know to look to MMPI, if they look to the county, they'll find the link and get to MMPI. Continuing development of the labor management plan for the project. As we've said before, it is a union building. The staff of people who will be involved in this project will be around 600 people in various capacities, whether direct employees or subcontractors, to do the work that has to be done in this building on an ongoing basis. And in the future, not today, but there's various things that we're working on that we will be talking to you about in the future, probably pretty near future. The ultimate parking plan for the project is well in process. The ribbon cutting event, which is in process, which we now know will be in June. Branding of the project, we're working on issues with MMPI, branding of the project, the tagline for the project, logo and signage, all those things now, and you know, that's been, you know, with the new name, we have to work on all those issues because it's, I'm allowed to say this in quotes, it's not the Medical Mart. That doesn't cost me $1 anymore. We have this new brand, and we have to make sure that it's brought forward. And we'll also be talking to you about naming rights and sponsorship activity, which is very active right now. And you will be hearing things about sponsorship in the building and hopefully naming in the building or components of it as well. So that's all part of the operations. Marketing update. I have 2 very busy slides, actually 3 very busy slides. So here's where we stand as of March in terms of convention center meetings. What this basically tells you is that there are 76 definite and confirmed events. What you see there, below the line, the lighter blue are trade and consumer shows. The darker blue are meetings, conferences, and special events. And you see this for 2013, 14, and 15. What you see beneath that are the total attendees that are confirmed and the total room nights during these various years. And these are confirmed events. You've been hearing and seeing announcements from time to time from Jim Bennett and others. This is sort of a cumulative slide that tells you where we are on this process. This doesn't get into the type of event other than to say it's a meeting, conference, special event on one hand, or a trade or consumer show on the other hand. So this is where we are, and this is a very active process. We are continuing, which is to say Dave O'Neill and the county are continuing to work with MMPI and Positively Cleveland to assist with his knowledge base, push this along, because we really want to grow this. And this is the bread and butter of what we're doing right here. The second slide, which is even busier, is a single slide for the Global Center that tells you about space assignments. And basically, the bottom line here is that about 80% of the space that's available, tenant space, is now assigned. Now, by assigned, it doesn't necessarily mean that the lease is completed, but it means that it's either been announced or unannounced but committed, or they're very far along the line with a very likely participant and they have a level of confidence that that's what they have. So what this shows you, if you go around the clock, you see on the left-hand bottom side the first floor, which is the health and home area. That's 100% assigned to unannounced but committed participants, including a retail, a place to get your cup of coffee and your snack, which I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I think it's kind of known who that is. But it's a good, well-known national brand there. Second floor, about 50% assigned. This is your people, patients, and caregivers. This is where you have Cleveland Clinic, GEL Healthcare. Third floor, clinical spaces, about 80% assigned. That's where you have Johnson Controls, Phillips Healthcare, University Hospital, some of the announcements that have been made. And then the fourth floor, and you saw, I'm sure you probably saw the news article today. There's a very large article today about HIMSS and everything that's happening there. And that's 100% assigned to HIMSS. One of the things I'll point out is that while right now these assignments involve 30 prime tenants, there are actually over 100 resident companies involved, because some of these prime tenants bring in, whether it's as a subtenant or a member of their association, but it would be a kiosk or a display by a resident other than the party signing the lease. So it's about 30 prime tenants and about what I've called 100 resident companies who will take up and show their wares and show their name in the facility. So this aspect of the project is just going extremely well. And of course, the latest big news, what has been the fourth floor, HIMSS, which of course was the organization that was the anchor tenant in Nashville, which is now coming to Cleveland, and just an extraordinary development for us. They represent a lot of market power, a lot of interest, bring a lot of shows. They're going to put their interoperability showcase up there where people basically come in and test their wares. It's just a fabulous concept. One thing I brought along, do you have the pamphlet?
Yes, everyone has it.
So they had their big show in New Orleans, a show, by the way, that we cannot do here because it's just many times the size of anything that could be done in Cleveland. There's only 3 or 4 convention centers in the country that could do their big national show. But one of the things that they handed out and talked about at the national show was they announced the HIMSS Innovation Center right here in Cleveland and talked about how this will be a center for what they do. It'll be a gathering point, and you can look through the brochure, but obviously they announced the opening in October 2013 at the same time as the Cleveland Clinic Innovation Summit. So it's a pretty impressive piece of collateral there, and you can just see how they go through and make a very big deal about what they're going to do here in Cleveland. So that is the presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What does HIMSS stand for?
The Health Information Management System. Health Information Management System.
And
Society.
okay.
Excuse me. Health Information Management Society.
And how locked in are we to Global Center for Health Innovation as opposed to theirs being health being the primary word of what their organization is, as opposed to ours being what the fourth word in our name?
I will say this, and in all fairness to Jim Bennett, he's not here to argue with me. Just kidding about that. That is the name of the center, but I will tell you that it is the county that controls naming rights. And if there was a party that came in and decided that they wanted to procure on the appropriate term the right to modify the name of this facility, and for the right consideration, we would entertain that.
Okay. I think you answered my own question with the way you answered the question. It sounds like it was true lawyer speak on that one. Because I haven't heard anybody, very few people spit that name out effectively and say that they think it flows very nicely off the tongue. But
And to that point, I'm going to go back to this slide.
and I notice you have not used those words either. You keep calling it Global Center, and all your slides call it Global Center.
I cannot think fast enough to spit the whole thing out. But do you notice here where it says near future announcements, it says branding, tagline, logo, and signage? There is a recognition that this name will have a tagline and also a nickname. Right now, and we have not yet shared some of the possible logos. We've seen some information developed that we're discussing with MMPI right now. But the working shorter name for this is the Global Center.
Okay, which doesn't tell me anything about health. Anyway, in next year, 2014, you show 60,000 hotel rooms with very few, relatively number of exhibitors. There must be one heck of a couple of really extremely big shows that are coming in that year, because it's double the number of hotel nights with less than half the number of exhibitions that are coming. So are we getting some really extremely big shoes that are coming?
It has 68,000 total attendees and 63,000 room nights for 2014. And we can give you the listing of the shows and the conferences that generate that, but what this does tell you is it's a lot of good out-of-town, substantial meetings where the people that come in, a lot of out-of-town traffic that stays here. We'll get you the backup and the data that supports that. I can't tell you specifically what show lines up with which numbers, but we can provide that.
Thank you.
More importantly, MMPI can provide that.
Yes, through the chair. In 2018, you didn't have anything listed, any projects or anything coming in.
Right.
What's going on with that?
Well, I'm going to make two comments about that. First of all, in a booking policy, it probably, from a booking policy, listing that far out is, you list 3 years out, 4 years out. But the bottom line is, this is an area where, MMPI, the operator, has a lot of work to do. We have some good short-term things. In fact, we're ahead of the pro forma in 2013 and 2014, but we are pushing very hard to make sure that MMPI is out there getting, 16, 17, 18 committed. Now, the issues are these. And by the way, they have to get their collateral out. They have to get into all these different markets. You have markets out there, people who have been in a routine, flow of shows that have to get committed. The bigger the show, the longer out they commit. Getting short-term commitments is easier than getting longer-term commitments. So this is really the focus. This is where MMPI has to be focused. This is where we are pushing them very hard to get that production in those years after the first few years. They're very cognizant of the need to do this, and they know that this is really the critical thing that has to be worked on. That's where the challenges are. But, we've met every challenge so far. We've met the short-term challenge. We have to meet the longer-term challenge.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And who's going to start out with subsection B, the update of the county administration complex?
Mary Ann Lash from URS. I'm first up today. I just wanted to give you an update on the activities of the tenant interiors work. We are working on the schematic design package. We are on schedule for completion for April 3rd. And at that point, we will have 2 cost estimates prepared on that package. One is to be done by Geis, and the other one is to be done by PCS, who is internal to our team. This first input on pricing will be very helpful to us in developing the DD package, and the DD package is the basis for the guaranteed maximum price. So we're on schedule with that. We received the core and shell building design development drawings from Geis, also on schedule on March 18th. We have a 2-week review period for that. We had a meeting already this week, and we have another scheduled next week to work through our comments and discuss what's going on with the core and shell. At our meeting yesterday was our first LEED meeting to talk about the LEED Silver rating that's planned for the project. So that part of the project is up and running. We have been scheduling a series of meetings with the directors to look at the layouts of their particular departments. We are starting with Public Works this Friday, and we have the majority of the meetings scheduled the week after Easter, and we expect to be complete with those meetings that week. That's important to us because we will be able to incorporate any of those changes into the design development package, which is the next set of drawings. Another thing that happened this week is the Public Works Department approved the Geis schedule of milestones, which was one of the requirements of the lease. And that's it for our package at this point. Any questions?
Hey, thank you.
Sure. Next up is Denver Brooker and Jeff Applebaum to talk about the exterior facade.
Is this going to be like show and tell today?
A little bit, yes. While he's putting that together, what we've been doing, we're going to show you a brief presentation on the exterior of the building. It's very similar drawings to what you saw a few weeks ago, but we're moving into the next level of municipal review process with the city in terms of the Design Review and Planning Commission. So we want to make sure that you understood the exterior building materials, the proposed colors and textures and treatments, so you're up to date on what you're getting. If you have any questions about those, then this would be a great time to interact with you on that. So this is the image that you've seen before. It's been slightly updated in a few of the mullion locations and some of the fin treatments, but it's generally the same building. And so I have put the little hand here and point to things. The big panels that you see that kind of create these frames, those are metal panels. It's an aluminum composite material that's integrated into the overall skin of the building. We're proposing that all of those panels be a silver color, so it'll be...
Maybe start down, you can pass it down.
that, and all of the mullions, the window frames would be that color. And then there are a number of elements on the building. I'll point to those as well. You see these horizontal sunscreen elements and these accentuated verticals that occur at the column lines. We would make those white. So you have a silver building with white accents. That's what we're proposing. Then there are a number of glass types on the building. When we look at the building, there's what we call vision glass, the glass that you can actually see through. And then there's glass that we call spandrel glass. The glass, it's glass, but it's at a sill wall or it's at structural lines, and you can't see through it. So in this building, you see the large zone on each floor, the vision glass, and then there's a zone between them where there are two colors. Those are two colors of spandrel glass. I'm going to go to the next slide and show you some context, some photographs of buildings with glass like the specification that we're using for this building. On this building, this is actually Eaton's new headquarters. where the arrow is, we see this glass. This is the vision glass, and right below it, we have spandrel glass. In this case, they're using only one color of spandrel glass, and in this particular light, it shows a little different than the vision glass, but it's also very similar. In the next photograph, you'll see this whitish glass in this Cleveland Clinic building. That would, now keep that in mind, we'll go back to the initial image, where you see two colors of spandrel. The darker one, that'll be more similar to the vision glass, and then this whitish line that occurs at each of the floors. Now we have a glass sample. This is the actual vision glass, but as you can see, it doesn't look anything like the photographs or our rendering. It's hard with glass samples to get an image of what it looks like. Hence, we've shown you photographs of buildings so you have a better idea. This is a high-performance piece of glass. There are coatings on it that make it perform in an energy-efficient manner. Then the other material in this building, at the base of the building, there are a series of piers, column enclosures, again where I'm pointing to. Those column enclosures will be clad in granite. Right now, what we're exploring with Geis is there's some existing black granite on the base of the building that we're hoping to reuse and finish in a honed finish. So right now, that granite is shiny black. We will hone the finish and create a not so shiny finish, but a softer black finish on the column.
Just interject one section about the bright silver. Now you're saying that's on all the columns. How is that? Is that easy to wash down? How does that wear to the dirt? Right.
How does it deal with the pigeons?
It actually deals very well. These metal panels and the window frames, this is a system, we call it paint, but it's really a high-performance coating. It's done in the factory. It's designed to be UV resistant for a long time. Most manufacturers warranty those finishes for 15 to 20 years. In terms of metals, there really isn't anything you can do that's better. And every building in downtown, other than, I don't even know if any building in this town has stainless steel mullions. Most buildings have a painted kind of window framing system, and this is like all of the other buildings.
So could you point to where the silver was again?
It's on all of these metal panels and the individual very narrow window frames around each pane of glass.
Is there any ledges or anything?
There are, at the base, there is a 6-inch ledge, and these sunscreens do create a 14-inch projection on the face of the building. But it's actually made up of a series of smaller louvers. It's not a continuous plane.
Are you finished, Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
I had a question, Mr. Jones.
Madam Chair, my question is to where the granite will be used.
The base of the building where these 2-story column enclosures are at the base of the building, and then there's a short sill wall where the windows don't actually touch the ground. They vary from 12 inches to 2 feet above the sidewalk, depending on where the sidewalk grade is. So the base of the building is where the granite is.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Just for clarity, the silver plating that's on the facade of the building, is that also on the bridge as well?
We're going to get to the bridge. Our intention is to apply a field-applied paint system to the bridge that will match the color of the factory-finished panels. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Anything further right now?
We good so far?
We're good.
All right, so I'll go to the next slide. talked about these. We also have two other elevations we have to talk about. The east elevation, which we're showing here. The same aluminum panels carry around the corner, just on the southeast corner with the glazing. And then the remainder of that facade will actually be clad in two colors of brick, a kind of light gray and then an accent warmer tone. So we see the light gray as the primary field, and then the darker tone between each floor of windows. And the same design carries on to the north side of the building, which is the barn court side that faces the Breuer Tower. So again, you see on the north west corner, the metal panel and glass continues around the corner, and then we continue with the brick treatment on the north face of the building. An interesting feature of how these walls are put together, this is actually a panelized system where the metal studs, the insulation, and the brick all come out as panels. It makes for putting it up faster. It's also very energy efficient in terms of just how these panels are constructed.
On this north face, we're still showing those garages for the 4 cars or whatever it is?
Yes,
there was some
these are
discussion,
the-
I thought, at one point that these center docks might go away. Are they still in the final design?
They're still in the current design, yes.
Are those the loading docks or the parking spots?
The loading dock is the one to the left,
Those are just for,
and the two in the middle are the vehicular garage spaces.
How many loading docks do you need? Is one enough? Bonnie says 2.
I think there's,
There's 2 spaces in the loading dock, so actually 2 trucks go
Oh,
side by
okay,
side.
all right.
all right.
but the 2 in the center are just for 4 personal cars. Is that my understanding?
I think there are space for 3 cars behind each of the overhead doors, so a total of 6.
I mean, if you didn't have those carports there, could that be additional space? Because, I mean, we're, you know, would that be additional space for something else in the lobby or in the building or something? I mean, I don't think we're going to have any overage of space here.
If that wasn't allocated to parking, then it could be some other use of the building. That area of the first floor is pretty dark because there's no windows in that area. But we tended to use those portions of the building for some of your back-of-house functions. The
Storage back, yeah, okay.
storage, mail room, there's some payment processing machinery that Treasury has, things like that, that don't have workers with them all day long.
All right. Good?
Yeah, good.
Okay. Then I'd like to address the bridge in terms of the proposed finish treatments. This is an image of the bridge as it exists right now. Just as a frame of reference, what you're looking at here is actually an exposed steel structure. It's how the bridge is actually built. This upper part that I'm pointing to is what engineers call a box beam. It's made out of steel plate, and it's a giant rectangular volume that is the structure of the bridge. The floor of the bridge is actually hung from that upper section, and these vertical elements that you see expressed on the outside are T-shaped hangers that support the floor of the bridge. So we go to the next slide. This is the image that you saw earlier, and the intention is that we paint all of the exposed metal elements of the bridge silver, with the exception of the vertical hangers, which we're proposing to paint white, which will match the vertical expressed elements on the building. So we kind of tie it all together in terms of elements that are vertically expressed. Have a little close-up view of this too, which I think will help. So you see in the lower, the existing, and then above, the new refreshed bridge. The thing to point out, and I think it was probably raised at the last meeting, is GEIS is scheduling a mock-up panel or a section of the bridge to be prepped, cleaned, and painted as we're proposing here, so that everyone can see the quality of what will actually be done. As we've explored all of these options, we really think that the bridge is kind of simple, elegant structure in terms of how it's structurally put together, and it can be cleaned up and be very compatible part of the overall complex. And then we...
What about the glazing?
The glazing, the current intention and scope is to keep the existing glazing, which is darker than what is being proposed for the building. In the context of the building, it's in a different plane. We think that it's not detracting in terms of the design. We think that the silver and white elements are going to lighten up the bridge. We actually looked at other color schemes where we said, well, what if we contrast with the building? Maybe we make it a medium gray, not black, but not silver. And those studies didn't lead to a solution that seemed as linked and compatible with the building. So our proposal is use the colors that are on the new building. Okay.
Good, yeah, keep going.
All right. And then inside. This is a image of the bridge as it exists right now. You'll notice there's dark mullions. These are actually steel elements. It's a custom framing system. Large rectangular wood handrails and surface-mounted light fixtures. In the base scope of improvements, we have a lot of discussion about what's in and what's not. This is what happens with those a base set of improvements to the bridge. It gets cleaned, gets repainted, it gets new carpet. Everything is lighter, brighter, refreshed. Actually makes for a nice entry into the headquarters. I'll point out about the carpet too. We are, in working with URS and the GEIS team, looking at what is known as a walk-off mat material. It's an extremely abrasively durable carpet material, but actually has a very upscale look to it. It's not the old walk-off mat of yesterday. This is a kind of a higher-end looking product, which will also, in terms of being a very durable surface long-term, it's also going to look really good. Then, as a result of meetings with Jeff Applebaum and his team, there was a request to look at the bridge closer and what other enhancements might we make. And the ones that they recommended that we look at and create an image for you is the following one. 3 aesthetic improvements. 1, remove the existing handrail and replace it with a lighter stainless steel handrail, more associated with contemporary design today. Replace the existing ceiling, which is a textured concealed spline tile. It comes off like people would think of it as a popcorn ceiling. We'd make a smooth ceiling, and then we would replace the existing light fixtures with something new, fresher, contemporary. We're looking at a number of low-profile LED linear light solutions as a possibility. And so then this is an upgraded bridge, 3 aesthetic improvements, and then the 4th that Jeff and his team had recommended was adding air conditioning. I think, Jeff, you have additional commentary.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
What would be the additional cost for the full package of the 4 improvements that I suggested?
We're getting there. Hold on, Mr. Mill, we're getting there.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to hand something out, and then I'll go through this in just for a second. Thank you, Denver. Everything I'm about to describe to you, by the way, is this is the consensus view. This is of my 2 architects, Steve Zanoni and Julie Crishone. So they did an in-depth look at this, and we did this together. So I'm reflecting our collective view, not just my view here. The first thing you actually should look at is the second page. What is in the box on the second page is the commitment and the obligation on the bridge structure. And this is all included within the contract. So this is what is owed to the county, and it delineates basically what is owed to the county and what we would buy over and above what is owed if we chose to do it. So I might come back to that in a minute. That just tells you the delineation, okay? Going back to the first page, what Denver described without these upgrades is what is sort of above the line there. So the bridge remodel work that is owed to us and was agreed upon is the new rubber roof, cleaning the exterior, putting this high-performance coat on the exterior, the new carpet, paint the interior of the bridge, the new fire doors, and cleaning the interior. We do believe that that bridge structure actually, although right now it's not in good, it doesn't look good because of the condition of the metal. We do agree it's actually an elegant structure. It's a nice architectural structure, and in fact, if you compare it to some other bridges in town, it's superior to a lot of bridges in town. So we think it's a simple, elegant structure, which, if coded properly, would actually be a good structure, and I think you can see that from the pictures. From the outside, what was of concern to us on the inside, if you take a look at this picture, so the 3 elements, you can't really tell from the ceiling, but the ceiling, the box lighting fixtures, and that wooden handrail are all very dated. They're very 70s, if you will, in terms of their appearance. You can dress them up, and this is the vision dressed up, and this is an aesthetic. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we get that back up?
There you go.
Let me just go back. So this is once again the image, and focus on 3 things. The ceiling, which is the popcorn ceiling, you can't really tell it here. You see those box light fixtures? And you see this handrail, which is this this big old wooden rail. Now that's what you would see in a 70s type structure. Now you can, and this is a purely aesthetic choice now. Functionally, this works. You can dress it up by painting it, so you'll have those kinds of structures for the handrails. You'll still have the box light fixtures. The ceiling's the ceiling. But what we said was, if you really wanted to make this, being very cost conscious here, and do those things which would really be necessary to bring this up to the same standard as a contemporary building, what would you do? And the things that we said you would do is you would replace the ceiling anyway, build in the light fixtures and a more contemporary lighting in the ceiling, get rid of the handrails. So it went from that to this, which is a more contemporary look, and we think would make a difference. Now, this is once again an aesthetic decision. It would be our recommendation. The dollars, and this would have to be tested once again. This is Geiss's, but tested by the numbers. But the numbers that have been put out for these, based on the Geiss review, are what you see here. The new ceiling, $40,000. The new interior light fixtures, $56,000. The new handrail, $15,400. And then the other thing that we said is there's no, the air is not conditioned during the summer, and we think you do have to do something to condition the air in there because you could have some very hot days, and it's $32,000 to condition the air. So that is, we wouldn't do more than that. Whether you want to do that, it's the aesthetic decision. It is, $143,000 to do it. But if we were to do anything to upgrade this, that's what we would do. As you recall, there was a list of, I can't remember, $600,000 or $700,000 $700,000 worth of things. We wouldn't do those. This is what we would recommend.
All right, I just want to make it clear that we're not making a decision on this, so don't write down that we're spending $143,000. This is just a proposal, okay?
Right. And the other thing I will say to you, as opposed to some other things in the building, these decisions are not critical in terms of timing. These can wait, and you can see where else we are on other issues. Now, the last thing that we would say is one of the things that's important to us, we believe the coating will work, we believe it will look good, but we don't have to base this decision on simply our speculation. One of the things that Geis has agreed to do is to mock up a section of the bridge. It's there. They will obtain the materials, they will do the painting and cleaning in a section so we can actually get a look at it and make a final decision once we see it mocked up. So we also have that ability to control this decision. That concludes what I have to say about this. If there's no more questions.
Any questions of Mr. Applebaum? Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you. The mock-up you're talking about, is that interior and an exterior mock-up or just exterior?
We were discussing an exterior mock-up, but I'm sure that we can do some things, whether it's carpet sample. I mean, we could get samples, and we could I'm sure we can get samples at a minimum of carpet, handrail, ceiling. The mock-up I was referring to was actually the exterior paint, but I'm sure that we could do something like a mock-up for the interior, if not a mock-up. Material samples you can certainly do.
Madam President, if I can continue.
Does any,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I have a question, but go ahead if you.
No, I was just going to say, did anybody else wanted to take a tour, had been on the bridge, or wanted to go back? Or? I think we did it once, but we can always go back. All right, well, we can arrange it. I'm sorry, Mr. Greenspan, go ahead.
Thank you. These numbers, the 143, those are Geis estimates based on their purchasing of materials for the additional components of the building.
Correct, and those would have to be tested with market pricing.
Okay. And I understand that there was some discussion one of the last times we met regarding Class A space, or at least the continuity of the bridge in its proposed contractual state being Class A, and realizing there very well may be different delineations between what Class A is. Is this in its original proposal without these additions?
Okay.
Would you consider that the bridge to be in Class A space condition as proposed in the original contract without these modifications, without these upgrades?
If I wasn't looking at contract language at all, I think, and once again, I would rely on my architect's opinion for this, but I think my architects would say that outside of the scope of the contract, without doing something, it probably would not be consistent with, Class A space because it's dated. Not to say that the structure couldn't be made, not to say that with these additions you don't get there, but in the absence of any guidance, that's probably a fair statement.
So then let me ask you, on page 2 in the box that you've you've identified, and what's been underlined, the present scope and budget define the treatment of the bridge as a refresh, including new roof. It's impossible interior. Any additional treatment rendered are one, not part of the project scope. How am I to read that?
Well, I think that I wasn't there, so I don't know what led to this conversation, okay? So I would speculate as to how this came about, but it looks to me, in all fairness, that there was clearly an intent here to say that if you go beyond what we would call a refresh, including the new roof, and it actually says it's a roof, it's washing, not replacement, it's painting, not replacement of material. So it's pretty specific on what it is and what it isn't. And I think that this modifies what an expectation would be. So I think that, in all fairness, that this pretty much indicates that, doing things like new panels, new glass would be beyond the scope of what's required of Geis under this contract.
But that would not be, what's in the contract is not, in your architect's opinion, then, would not be consistent with the building itself. That these recommended upgrades are what your architect recommends would bring the building to equal status as the new building, bring the bridge to equal status as the new building. Without it, it's not.
It's always a question of judgment, but I think but our opinion would be that within reason, giving budget constraints, reasonable budget constraints, and given the fact that, frankly, it is a bridge, it's not your lobby. We think that within reason, that this would be not only an acceptable solution, but we think it would be a good solution.
But without it, the current plan is not.
Without it, we think that when you walk in that bridge and look at those old box lights and look at that old handrail, someone would say that you just painted a 70s bridge and might ask the question might think it's a little out of date. So we think that these are reasonable solutions to the problem.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Schrein?
On that, just to follow up on Mr. Greenspan's, I assume the transition as you go into the new building will have things like the handrails consistent with what you're suggesting for the bridge. Is that reasonable to assume that there will be if we're going to update the internal of the bridge, it's going to transition into the same kind of handrails we'd be using inside the building, so it look like one continuous flow? I mean, I hope we're not picking one going left and the other going right, and we're using wood handrails on the inside of the building, or just a...
And the answer to that is yes. The finished palette that is being developed right now for the kind of lobby spaces of the building, we're working in concert with URS so that the shell and core finishes are compatible and complementary to the tenant fit-out finishes, but it's all a light, bright, contemporary, fresh approach. The handrail on the second floor atrium space we're looking at as a structural glass rail. So it's a glass rail. This is a light metal bar. So they're both contemporary expressions.
Like lighting systems
Oh, yes,
I mean,
the lighting.
it seems to me if you're going to try and transition, you're going to transition with the same kind of lighting system in the space as you are in the building.
Absolutely.
So it gets back to Mr. Greenspan's that you're going to coordinate this space as opposed to what we currently have is a painted up 70s space is what we currently have. And it looks like based on the granite that we're talking about, that's an example of taking a 70s granite and making it into a contemporary looking granite by flipping it on the backside, if that works out. Is that another example of updating? Realistically, we're doing the same thing, suggesting with the granite that you're going to upgrade the granite to what current architectural standards would be suggested, if I'm understanding.
Black granite is timeless, so it's kind of a little bit different. Black granite's been used forever. We simply are recommending proposing a honed finish in lieu of a polished finish. It's a little different look.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Madam, thank you. I just wanted to be clear about the lease agreement between the county and Geis, and I see that there's a provision that's in a box, which is number 2, and that's the refresh provision. What amount was added to the overall contract to be able just simply to accomplish the refresh job?
What amount?
Was this an additional amount added to the overall contract to just simply refresh the bridge opposed to adding these other?
I can't answer anything about how this was negotiated. I'm the after the fact guy. So
I
you'd have to ask
understand,
that to
but is
somebody
somebody,
Refresh was always in there, right, Bonnie?
That was part of the original base contract?
This is the base contract.
Well, it's in a box and it's underlined, so I thought this was added after we decided to keep the bridge.
My understanding, and Majid, you or others can correct me if I'm wrong, that as part of the negotiation of the contract, these were documents and this was all negotiated, and the final negotiated Exhibit B is this document.
That's what I'm actually trying to find the lease to make sure. Basically, what happened is there was Exhibit B, that was being worked out by URS and Guys till the very last minute, and that was the version where URS made their comments back between URS and Guys. But
Okay, that's okay,
trying to
Mr. Law
verify
Director.
that
If it's
the
part of the
language-
base contract, that's
Yes.
what I thought.
Yes.
And so these recommendations are modest, I think. But what would be the cost, and you probably don't know, Mr. Applebaum, but I want to remember what the cost is if we were to take this bridge down. How much? Okay, it was 500, okay.
Right. And then we also had to get permission from the city to take it down. All right, Mr. Rogers?
This is kind of trivial, but I just wanted to know there's a difference on the external look of the bridge based on the lighting on the inside. So if you keep the box lighting, does the bridge, when it's lit up at night, is there a difference in look through the glass? Because I noticed the box lighting appeared to be kind of down a little lower and closer to the glass, whereas the proposed interior lighting is more in the middle of the
What we would
ceiling.
expect is that the bridge will appear lighter and brighter in the evenings than it does right now. The nature of those light fixtures that are in the bridge right now and the kind of diffuser that's on them, it's a little more subdued, the lighting. So the new lighting will be brighter from the outside as well as inside.
Our architects, when they looked at this, because, we'd also talked about this issue of whether you would light the bridge from you remember there was some, and our architects had the view that one of the advantages of doing this would also be that now you're going to have this new brighter bridge, and that the light that actually, the ambient light from the bridge, rather than having these dark areas that spot it, the general ambient light would actually enhance the look of the bridge from the outside. So that was their view.
Ms. Simon?
Just one more question, I think, to the architect, or with regard to the windows that are going to be installed, I guess, throughout the building and on the bridge. Will these windows have the tint to minimize the amount of heat coming into the building to help with saving energy?
The new building, the glass sample we passed about, it's a high-performance glass. It has what is known in the industry as a low-E coating. It's a low emissivity coating, hard to pronounce, but it controls the heat gain and UV penetration into the building. All contemporary buildings use glass like this now because we're looking for LEED certification. The glass needs to perform at a certain level to be able to do that.
So the glass, on the side, are you talking about referring to the bridge?
No, the bridge,
Right,
the
he's
glass is
referring
not
to
being replaced.
Right, so
Okay.
it's not going to control energy.
We'll have air conditioning. One last question, Madam Chair. Are we sure we need air conditioning in this bridge? Do all the new bridges have air conditioning, or all the bridges I've walked on don't have, as far as I know, don't have air conditioning? So I just wanted some feedback on that.
It's subjective, like many of the things associated with this bridge. It's relatively small. It's not really occupiable. If you were to go on the Cleveland Clinic bridges, they're much larger. They're 20-some feet wide. They're air-conditioned bridges. People can have meetings on those bridges. This is a very small, it's not a kind of bridge that you linger on. So Does air conditioning make it nicer? Of course. Is it absolutely necessary? I just can't say.
How hot could it get in there?
Don't know.
Our view of this is it's impossible for us to understand or know what those conditions could be like. The treatment on one end of that bridge will be different. There's nothing that, pushes air through the bridge right now. So we don't know for sure. But our thought was to be blunt about it, that, the cost of that is $32,000. And while I'm not making light of $32,000, if we have a problem, if it gets very stuffy, very hot, and very uncomfortable there, once you get the thing done, to go back and retrofit for that could be a problem. So we felt that for that cost, it was probably worth it to recommend it. But the truth is, we don't know for sure whether it's going to be absolutely necessary or not.
Madam Chair, that was going to be my question. We talked about coming in with an add-on in the event that it became necessary to make any changes after the completion of the new building and the refreshment and the upgrade on the bridge. Why would it be a problem to retrofit that later? Couldn't we build this with installing an air conditioner in mind? Or if we had to do it, I'm not sure why that would be such a problem to put in an air conditioner later.
By the way, if Geist will guarantee us right now that they'll do it later for no additional charge than the 32, I'd say
Right. Come up and tell us so we can hear.
To do it later, the cost will be more expensive. To rough it in, that is an additional cost also. So if you do it now, it's the 30-some thousand. To do it later, it's going to be X. To rough it in now, to give you the opportunity to do it later, will still be a number I have not worked up.
I wouldn't mind looking at that number. I don't understand why this is going to be such a big deal later, seriously, to come in and install an air conditioner after this. We're not recreating the bridge, we're just putting upgrades. So I would like a number, if I can, Madam Chair, at some point of what your anticipated cost would be to install an air conditioner later.
No problem. I wasn't prepared for that question.
Ryan, do you want to add something?
I just would say that we can look at those costs and we can get back to you later as far as getting into the details as opposed to doing it during the initial construction or adding it later.
Okay. All right, is there anything further?
Just one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Madam
Mr. Wade.
Chairperson. On this incredibly important area that we're discussing about the air conditioning on the bridge, isn't it true that the lobby, when you get to the lobby, there will be air conditioning in the lobby?
That is true.
And there will be nothing blocking the air conditioning from the lobby from wafting into the bridge?
There will be doors.
Is there a door?
Yes,
Are there doors
will
there?
be doors that separate the walkway.
I just wonder why on a hot summer day, why anyone would be walking in a bridge in the first place. Why they wouldn't be outside in the sunshine.
Yes, Mr. Gallagher.
Bonnie, it was earlier reported that they're going to start meeting with the directors regarding the space usage. Is there going to be somebody that actually uses the space meeting also with these folks?
I'm not sure I understand
My
that.
experience with bosses and directors, they have no idea what people do and what idea they need for work, which we can all laugh about, but it's true. So are we going to have someone that's going to actually practically use that space in that room, choose an employee, throw a dart, you'll get somebody that knows what they're talking about, as opposed to just a director who are fine people, but for the most part don't know what their people do?
Well, I can't speak for the other directors, but what I am proposing to do in my department is once we get the preliminary layout is to look at it myself and meet with my administrators and have them go through with each of their departments to look at their space and actually start drilling down into assignments and how the work is going to be, how the space is going to be distributed. And I would hope that some of
I
our,
thought that was all done.
within Public Works, to look at.
I mean, that's not done with you at this stage? I thought that was all done.
The space are, yes, but it's a matter of actually identifying who would be in each space. Names haven't been put in boxes yet.
I'd still be very comfortable and will be willing to talk to the executive about this and the rest of council of having somebody that actually practically uses that space be in the room when these discussions are being held.
Yeah, I would hope all the directors would do as I am doing.
Mr. Schrein?
And I would agree with my colleague, Mr. Gallagher, on this one, because I know that when we did our buildings, we actually did mock-ups and had the employees actually sit there with their keyboards and actually work and adjust those mock-ups to, and the final mock-up and what the management thought was the most efficient was not what we ended up with. And I'm sure that you'd find out, and to confirm what Mr. Gallagher was saying, is that the individuals, whether they be in Public Works or whatever, are going to give you great input. And I congratulate the suggestion of Mr. Gallagher on that.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, is there any miscellaneous business? We have some folks that want to make public comment, and they are really scheduled for the 5 o'clock meeting, but since we're all here and it's be a very brief presentation, they're all senior citizens, I thought it'd be advisable, let's just hear from them now. It's not related to this topic, but it'll save them from having to wait. So you want to bring Mr. Richardson up? Yeah, as big as attendance, yeah. All right, you want to come on up, please? I mean, you're welcome to stay, but, we thought if you didn't want to stay, we'll get you out. Hey, don't leave, you need to stay.
Yeah.
You have to say that.
All right. All right, Mr. Rich, we're in session, folks. All right, folks, we're in session. This is a request for public comment. Mr. Richardson, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and council members and staff. We came here today. I'm the president of a Veterans Ohio nonprofit 501c3 organization. We're located in Mooresville Heights. Since 2007, we have serviced a caseload of over 30-some veterans and doing claims and going to the federal building doing appeals. We had a good track record. We did this without any funds, and we now are asking you to consider our proposal for something to reprogram unused funds from the Veteran Service Commission. We have a track record. In your package, you will find what we're about. We get veterans referred by Congressman Fudge's office and other people. But in there, you'll find the documentation. We have been paying rent and spending our own personal money to keep this going because there's a lot of veterans out there, and our program is unique. We find them in the bars and the dope houses, on the streets, and we try to make them whole. We met with our relationship with Susan Ferrer, the Director of Medical Services in Ohio, and also with the George Strange over in the federal building. And a lot of people don't understand that the Department of Veteran Affairs is divided into 3 sections: pension and bonuses, medical, administrative. We use the Congressional Federal Code of Regulation, Title 38. That is the law dealing with services for veterans nationwide. And we had at our meet saying and that we're just tired and we're running out of funds. I gave you a proposal. I didn't want to come back down here. I did this years ago. But I had to come see the elected official. I'm 100% service-connected Korean veteran, and I hold the Bronze Star Combat Medical Badge. And it took me 40 years for them to give me my due. But we have the other veterans. And like, if you will let the veterans stand, they're all disabled veterans that I have been able to get their claims overturned. They're in counseling for post-traumatic stress and Agent Orange. And now we got them coming from the contaminated water out of Captain G. I would like to ask them if they could stand, Madam Chairman.
Okay, will all the disabled veterans stand for us, please? You may be seated. Gentlemen, we'd like to thank all of you for your service, and I know that Mr. Richardson is a combat veteran of the Korean War, and like I said, we'd like to thank all of you for your service. As I have explained to Mr. Richardson before, the Veterans Service Commission has money that has not been used. In the past, that money was returned back to the general fund. Thanks to Mr. Greenspan, we have passed legislation that this money will now be segregated out so that will be allocated for veterans' purposes. We have made no decisions. We have no proposal at this point. We will be looking at all proposals, but at this point, no decisions have been made. We appreciate your proposal, but we have to look at every single proposal in a fair and impartial manner. So when we get the guidelines together, we will notify you and every other veterans group, and then we'll make a decision. It will be a fair and open process. Every proposal will be vetted in public, and we'll make a decision, all right? But at this point, none of the money has been spent. There has been no decisions made other than this money is allocated for veterans. Okay, but we thank you for coming down. We thank you for your proposal, and we will. We're getting it together. As you can see, we're tied up with this building and a lot of other things, and we just haven't had the physical time to figure out, all the guidelines at this point. But yours will certainly be considered. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. All right. Is there any other business before this work session? If not, we stand adjourned to our regular meeting at 5 o'clock. All right.